What's going on, you guys? Matt with Legacy Ranch. We are excited to be presenting some classroom-based training here on YouTube. Part of the reason why we want to do that is we have training here at Legacy Ranch, and that's exciting for us, but it's really hard to put together something within a course or a course that we're trying to condense 2 months of said course into a weekend long thing with students and everything like that. So we want to provide this to you guys. We think it's a good training forum, training opportunity to sit, listen, and so we have a lot of stuff coming up. So stay tuned for that. Today's class is going to be covering mountain safety. Now, mountain safety comes from PET, which is pre-environmental training, and that pre-environmental training comes from Bridgeport, California. More specifically, the Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Center. Now, there's nothing super crazy in here. There's no like military operations. There's nothing secretive or whatever. This is for anybody who goes outside, explores the outdoors, and wants to just have a better understanding, or should have a better understanding of how the mountain operates. It's said in the military that the water and the mountain are the two great equalizers. So it doesn't matter how cool you are, you get put in the ocean or on top of a mountain. If you're not prepared, then you are not that cool. So haters can't swim. Anyway, hope to see you guys continue on with this journey. And if there's any specific training that you are looking for, feel free to comment down below. Let us know. Like, share, follow, subscribe, all that YouTube algorithm stuff. But so here we go. All right, you guys. So bear with me. This is a old school PowerPoint presentation. Yes, I said PowerPoint presentation. I did not say slide deck. That ages me a little bit, but that's okay. So this again comes directly from the Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Center. There's no secrets or surprises or anything like this, but this is one of the classes within the PET or pre-environmental training. We do get tested on this, and it doesn't matter which school or course you went to. Everyone's getting the same thing prior to the core of the education or the core of the curriculum that of the class that they're attending. Everyone gets the same thing. So, mountain safety, Legacy Ranch, terminal learning objective. For all my veterans out there and current military, understand these types of things. So, terminal learning objective: in a winter mountainous environment, execute preventative measures for mountain injuries in accordance with the references. The references, I'm not obviously handing out any pubs or anything like that or publications, literature for you to follow up on, but obviously this class will suffice. So, enabling learning objectives. Without the aid of reference and given the acronym Be Safe Marine, list in writing the 12 principles of mountain safety in accordance with the references. All right, so we're going to go through this real quick, and then each slide is going to get their own thing. So, Be Safe Marine, BESAFEMARINE. Be aware of group stability. Evaluate terrain and weather constantly. Stay as a group. Appreciate time requirements. Find shelter and find shelter before storm if required. Eat plenty and drink lots of fluids. Maintain proper clothing and equipment. Ask locals about conditions. Remember to keep calm and think. Insist on emergency rations and kits. Never forget accident procedures. Energy is saved when warm and dry. So just so you know, when I went through these classes, I actually got, the old school 3x5 cards. I wrote on it, the acronym or the term or the verbiage or whatever it is that I needed to know on one side. Did the old school, 3x5 note cards. Those really went a long way. I highly suggest getting them. I have a little box. I still, to this day, I have a little box with all my PET training that I occasionally will reference if I forget certain little details here and there, but that's good to have around, and it's good to pass on as well. If part of this is knowing your group's ability, so if you're going out with somebody that you're not familiar with, then go ahead and pass those along. Just a thought. All right, being aware of group stability, physical fitness, mental attitude of your group, technical aspects of your group, and then individual skills. So typically people don't just like, hey, I see you shopping at REI, let's go on an excursion together. It's not usually how that happens, but people in your group, you should be aware of how they think, how they operate, their physical fitness level. There is a level of observation there. I know in today's day and age, sometimes we're not allowed to look at people and have an opinion, but when it comes to the mountain doesn't care. So physical fitness is a big one. When your body is more resilient and strong, you're able to actually do more with that, and it's not going to be as much of a toll when you're at higher altitude, or covering, doing over the snow mobility or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Mental attitude of your group. So is there a Debbie Downer in the group? Is there somebody always being pessimistic and looking at the worst side of things? I'm not going to tell you what to do, but you always want to have what we would call PMA, positive mental attitude. That goes a long way. That's one of those intangibles that you can't necessarily plan for. You can't buy it at the store, but PMA goes a long way. Technical aspects of your group. Do you have that rock climber who just is always out bouldering and doing crazy stuff on the weekends? Do you have someone who's really, really good at fishing? Do you have, and this goes into individual skills as well. Do you have somebody who's really good at fishing? Do you have someone who's good at trapping or hunting or scouting or looking at the weather and understanding, cloud formations or whatever it is? All those things are going to be huge. Not one person needs to know everything, but it's good to have people within the group that are well-rounded and have a level of expertise within that group to be able to say, oh yeah, I'm observing the weather being, acting in such and such a way, we should prepare for X, right? So, and of course you get that through experience. So get out there, train, have a good time, learn, all that stuff. All right, evaluate terrain and weather constantly. So terrain, careful movement, always know your position, and weather. So I'm never going to stop harping on weather. Weather's a huge one because the weather does its own thing when you're in the mountain. More on that later. Terrain, you got to be careful with what you're doing, and you want to, when you're doing movement, there are techniques that ultimately preserve your energy. So, do I step over the rock or around the rock, and how is that going to affect my overall caloric expenditure? How many joules of energy am I using? So that's a huge one. When navigating terrain, it's surviving is the mission, and it's not CrossFit. You're not doing this for time. Obviously there are exceptions when you're like trying to do trail running or whatever, but I think you guys get the point. Always know your position. So knowing your position will keep you from being lost, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. I've had to say this legitimately in the past. Always know your position. If you always know where you are, then you're never lost. Lightning storm. So this goes into weather a little bit. So when in a lightning storm, turn off all radios, stage radios, and weapons if you have them, from personnel. Have personnel separate in preferably low-lying area and or around tall natural objects. However, personnel should not sit underneath trees. Obviously, the situation dictates. If you're in a crazy storm and you don't have a shelter, or the storm happened upon you before you were able to prepare a shelter, and your vehicle is the only thing you got, that's a big radio. That's a big metal radio, and guess what's more of a target? But effectively, you're going to be probably a little bit more safe in that situation than it's a roll of the dice, right? You have to understand where you're at and the potential for these dangers. So you make the best decision per your situation. Stay as a group. So maintaining a steady pace, rest halts based on units or your group's ability, load and mission requirements, and always use the buddy system. So maintaining a steady pace as a group is important, because if you got the one dude who's in ultra marathons and the other dude that's kind of just like a weekend warrior, drives out to a fishing spot and puts out a line from the bed of his truck, those people probably are going to be in different physical conditions, right? So if you stay as a group and you maintain just a steady pace, everyone's happy, and you're going to want to implement rest halts based on that group's ability, right? So are you what is the purpose of this, I'm using mission here because, again, these are out of a Marine Corps for the DoD, right, for the military to train. But those rest halts are important to know when and how to take them based on group stability. Are people getting burned out? Do you have huge rucksacks on your back? You're going up and down mountains. Are you going to be able to, as we would say, fight when you get there? So what is it that you're doing exactly, and plan your rest according to that as well. Of course, again, your group's ability. Buddy system. So if you got to step off the trail to go use the restroom or whatever the case is, you want to have someone there with you, and not just like, oh, I'm gonna go off and do my own thing, and then 20 minutes later you guys are sitting around taking pictures, having a good time, and Dave has been gone for the last hour. You don't know what happened. That doesn't mean that person got lost or is unable to find his way back. You don't know if that person fell, got bit by something, had a high altitude sickness attack. There are many factors that do not necessarily reflect on a person's capability. So put that aside. Always have a buddy with you. There's no reason not to. At least have eyes on. Appreciate time requirements. So time distance formula. A lot of times people will be like, oh, the truck is about 2 miles back that way, or the camp is 3 miles back over there. Let's as a group, let's get into using time in reference to distance. So in this instance, what we use, or what the military uses, is 3 kilometers per hour for 3 kilometers per hour is plus 1 hour every 300 meters of ascent, and or plus 1 hour for every 800 meters descent. What that means is, if I'm going in a straight line, I could walk, say, 1 mile in a straight line on flat ground at sea level in whatever that time is. But if there's a big mountain in between me and where I'm going, and I have to go up and down, sure, you're traveling, and this might get a little bit we can talk about the math of it, but your person is traveling a greater distance because it's not a straight line. Now you're going up and down, if that makes sense. You are slowed, obviously, when you are going uphill, and you're still slowed when you're going downhill from a straight line, but those are the 2 different rules of thumb that we use when we're trying to plan, say, a mission. We need to be at this particular place no later than this time. That means after a map study, observing the different terrain differences and elevation gain and loss, I can effectively figure out how long it's going to take me to get there on foot. That requires map studies. That requires the proper planning, of course. So Also know that when you're trying to, more so when you're coming back, if I need to get back to my vehicle at a certain time because I told my loved ones I was going to be back home at a certain time or within cell phone range, then that is important because we don't want to get anybody all worked up and then they're going to send a search party and things are going to get weird. So note, this is an approximation and does not account for every movement. The main factors are, the individuals in question, their physical fitness level, their speed, altitude that they're used to operating out of versus the altitude that they're currently operating out of, any possible injuries that may happen, snow, rain, all that kind of stuff, anything that might slow you down. That's a rule of thumb for, say, normal conditions. Find shelter before storms if required. So, bivouacking, planning, and unplanned. Planned is, hey, we're taking a planned rest in this journey. We're going to go ahead and set up here. Go ahead and get your shelters prepared because that was part of the plan to begin with. We'll make movement in the morning and go ahead and get out of here. Unplanned is, okay, something happened. My barometric pressure has changed according to my instruments that measure those. And we're going to go ahead and stop right here, make a shelter, keep warm, and keep dry. Or we got some cloud formations coming in, or we're listening to the radio. Whatever it is, if there's any indicator, don't hesitate to stop and go ahead and take shelter. Yes. All right. Eat plenty and drink lots of fluids. So eat at least 4,500 calories per day. Drink at least 6 to 8 quarts of water per day. I said of water per day. Not of beer, not of whiskey, beer or water. So no, these are averages for moderate energy expenditure. So 4,500 calories. If you didn't know, 1 pound of food is roughly 3,500 calories. Obviously, it depends on what you're consuming. A pound of steak is not the same as a pound of Twinkies. So just understand that. But when you are at a higher elevation, higher altitude, your body is using more joules of energy and it's burning more calories just to exist the same as it would if you were at sea level. Now, obviously, you're doing more movement over the mountains. You're going up and down terrain. You probably have some kind of pack on you, and you're moving probably faster than you normally would if you're just hanging out of the house. So understand that with more energy expenditure comes the requirement for more food intake, right? Water. Drink water. Maintain proper clothing and equipment. So clothing is the protection from the elements. You need to have it layered and easily adjustable, lightweight, and durable. We use the acronym COLD, C-O-L-D, COLD, to kind of use it, give us a rule to live by when it comes to maintaining our clothing. So COLD is keep clothing clean. Keep clothing clean. Avoid overheating. You don't want to overheat. When you are hunting, specifically as a hunter, and I've had this conversation with hunting friends that I've gone out with, you want to avoid. You don't want to heat, or you don't want to sweat. Sweating's bad, because you start to sweat and then you stay still for hours, and it's 20 degrees outside, and guess what? That sweat is. That is now a swamp cooler that you've attached to your body. Congratulations. So avoid overheating. Loose and layered. Keep clothing dry. So we'll get into, let's see. Okay, so we'll get into VIP, which are the principles of layering later, but real quick, it's a vapor transmission layer, it's the insulation layer, and then the protective layer. So layering is huge, and cotton kills. So, all right, ask locals about conditions. Weather, dangerous places, finding food, finding shelter, and finding fresh water. You might be a survival badass out there and in your environment, but if you go out to another environment, you might not have a clue what you're doing. who knows best? The people that live there every day, people that exist in that environment, have the understanding of where to source food, water, to places to avoid. Obviously, weather patterns. If some people are in tune with that, and understanding signs to look for, especially when it comes to water, and then finding patterns to look for when it comes to weather. There we go. And then finding fresh water. Can't stress enough, you need to drink plenty. Pee for plenty. Remember to keep calm and think. So keep calm, don't panic, think, select course of action, and act like a tight-knit group working towards a goal. It's not an individual, you are a group working towards a goal. So this is a big one. You can easily get inside your head, I'm lost, my map is, I'm unfamiliar with this map, I'm unfamiliar with this terrain, this weather, whatever it is. That's okay. Now's the time to get familiar with it. But you can only get familiar with it by putting yourself in that environment, but you have to have the right mindset to make it through to the other end. So there you go. Insist on emergency rations and kits. Emergency rations, it's not going to hurt you to have bring another box of Cliff Bars, or put another, one of those Mountain House MREs, meal ready to eat, inside your bag, or several of them in your vehicle. It's not going to hurt. You're going to have extra food. And what if something happens to your existing food? It fell out of your bag. You are eating more than you thought. You're hungrier, more hungry than you thought you were going to be. Whatever the case is, have extra food. It's okay. Pee for plenty. All right. Survival kit. Food gathering materials, water gathering material, signaling material, fire starting material, shelter building, and first aid. So food gathering can be, so me personally, I've got a Nalgene, and then I have a little metal cup that fits on the outside on the bottom of that Nalgene. That could be for any kind of like vegetables that I find, or edible plants, I should say. Edible plants, berries, if I catch a fish, which would be food gathering material, right? Some line, some hooks, some bait, whatever. I can cook said fish in that little cup. You want something to be able to go out, scavenge, and eat, and also prepare your food. Water gathering material. Like I said, I've got an Nalgene. I've got that little cup. I can dip it in the stream. Obviously, we're going to want to purify that. We want to have the ability to purify that. So water gathering material also means anything to purify. Now, if the plan is to boil, great. If the plan is one of those UV pens, fine. I like the filtering systems. There are a lot of really good brands out there. I've used Platypus. I've used, I think it's called Ketadine. It's a pump with a filter. You don't want to drink water from an unknown source. We'll get more into that later. Signaling material. So signaling material, you want to have a little, at minimum, a whistle, a little mirror, and some kind of light source. So flashlight, headlamp, all that kind of stuff. You also want to have overlapping and redundant systems. I have my one flashlight. Okay, what if it breaks? What if the batteries die on that thing? What if it gets lost? What if it was submerged underwater for too long? I carry a headlamp. I carry 2 flashlights, one on my person, one in my bag, and I carry a mirror for daytime signaling, and a whistle for obviously that auditory signaling. So we're covering visual, we're covering auditory, and anything in between that can be overlapping. So fire starting, big lighters. In the past I've heard that they're not going to work in crazy environments. I've had big lighters work in some pretty wild environments. I've also had big lighters not work in my house when I'm trying to light a candle and there's no wind or rain. So take several of them, get some fire starting material. Part of what I was saying before is being prepared, is knowing and understanding how to utilize these systems prior to stepping off for your adventure. We'll call it your adventure. So if you're like, oh cool, I have this fire starting material, I have this magnesium block with a striker on it, well that takes a certain level of understanding how to actually work that thing. It's a lot more difficult than people, especially the movies and TV shows, make it seem. It takes energy, effort, and an understanding of how to effectively use that stuff. So if you're using something that's not just a lighter, which I do suggest taking more than just a lighter, have an understanding of how that works, have some experience and practice with that, even if that's in the backyard. Shelter building material. Are you bringing a tent? Do you have a little tent in your bag with you, or is it just some kind of poncho that you can string between two trees and have that be your shelter? Know your environment, know the weather conditions, know the potential weather conditions as well. That way you can know what to bring. I've seen people just bring I've got like a sleeping bag. Okay, well, that's not really a shelter, but it's something. And all the way up to, I've got a tent with a stove and all this other stuff and whatever. That's up to you. But again, be familiar with how to utilize it, how to build it. String, 550 cord, a knife goes a really long way. If you're able to saw some limbs, you're able to build a shelter with things that you source from your environment. First aid material. Everyone these days, all the internet warriors want to have 18 tourniquets. That's all fine and great, but don't forget about the stuff that happens more often than not. I've been stabbed with trees and bushes and got little scrapes and cuts and whatever else, way more than I've ever been shot. So having tourniquets are awesome, but if you get some kind of laceration, and it's at risk of infection because you've been out in the wilderness or out in the bush for, say, over a week and your skin isn't particularly clean, what does that look like for you? That opens you up for some type of infection. So just planning for all the small stuff and getting in front of it from, sure, take your tourniquet because you can get, in a bad situation. It doesn't have to be tactical necessarily, but you can get in a bad situation where you might need a tourniquet. Take some splints with you. Take some things that can aid in the splint building and mobility once you or the patient is in a splint. Take things that are gonna, cover up clean and cover up those lacerations. Eye care and protection is a big one. So you don't need to take a 80-pound bag that a medic would have on their person, but something, and also again knowing what it is and how to use it will go a very long way. All right, never forget accident procedures. APAS, NGG. Feel free to take a screenshot, stop this recording and write this stuff down. We'll get into what that is in just a second. But APAS, NGG, general procedures for handling an accident. So perform basic first aid. So that's triage. What happened? What was the mechanism of injury? What is the outcome of this? Did you stub your toe, or did you have a tree limb go through the side of your body? Obviously, you have to know what's going on in order to perform that basic first aid. So do what you can with your ability and with your kit's ability. You could be a surgeon, but if all you have is a Band-Aid, well, I guess that's not a good day. So you want to protect the patient from the elements. So going back to the caloric expenditure, what's happening is when you become sick or injured, your body is now going into fighting mode. You're going to use more energy because the body's going to protect itself. So you don't need to be fighting the wind or the weather and the any more than you have to. So make sure that person is physically healing and dealing with that situation the best way possible. CASEVAC, casualty evacuation if necessary. So that might be a life flight thing. You might have some a team that needs to come out and help get off the mountain, or it could just be AMS, acute mountain sickness, and you just need to help walk that person back down the hill back to a better elevation for them. But that could be considered casualty evacuation from the situation. Send for help if required. So I know we talked about staying as a group, but obviously there are those caveats that we have to stay as a group. No, somebody needs to run back to a vehicle or back to a place with cell signal or whatever and send out that help. Send out that signal for help. If possible, never send anyone alone. We've already talked about the buddy system. Utilize the buddy system in this case, if possible. All right, send the following information. So time of accident, nature and location of accident, number of people injured, and best approach route to the accident scene. So you want to paint that picture for the people who are actually going to be performing the rescue. That way they can disseminate that information to, say, the pilots or whatever. We don't need a search party that turns into a rescue. We need to know where that person is, the condition that they're in, and that way too the medics who, say, if it is like a life flight situation, the medics are going to be able to adequately prepare their kit for when they scoop that patient up, and they're able to be that next echelon of care to get them to a higher echelon of care, being, say, the hospital. So that's important information. If you have to leave the injured alone, leave the following: when you expect to return, where you went, what you did before you left, audio, international distress signal, 6 blasts in 1 minute, and return by 3 blasts in 1 minute. So if you have an air horn, you have a whistle, if you're able to whistle really loud, whatever the case is, that's the international distress signal. Hopefully it doesn't get to that, but again, this is one of those things you might want to write down on a note card and just reference it occasionally, especially if you are pretty active in the outdoors. All right, APAS NGG, another acronym. The military loves acronyms. So apply essential first aid, meaning splints, pressure bandages, things like that. You want to protect the patient from the elements. We already went over that. Avoid unnecessary movement of the patient. So get that patient to a spot where you don't think that you're going to need to move them anymore. There should be no additional handling of that patient, no more than what's required. Seek medical aid. So knowing your group's abilities, knowing your personal abilities, apply that natural or that first aid to the best of your ability, but also having the goal in mind to get them to the next and the highest echelon of care that they are going to need. We're really trying to save life, limb, and eyesight, right? Seek medical aid. Obviously, if you got a little scrape on your arm, a little boo-boo, and it's inconsequential to that individual or the group, then sure, continue on. But if it's, someone's got a broken leg, that is definitely that is the new mission. Your fishing trip is officially canceled. So stay calm and keep the patient calm. So it's okay, cool. Hey man, these things happen. John went to go get some help. Do you need anything? Do you want some water? Okay, cool. Me and my friends, we're all jokesters. So like, hey man, probably shouldn't have broke your leg. That wasn't cool. That wasn't cool of you. Just ruined the weekend. I'm not saying to do that. My friend group and I, we're all a little crazy, but understand the patient, understand what's going to calm them and keep them calm, and provide as much comfort as well as first aid as possible. Let's see. Note vital signs and injuries. So real quick, there's a difference between signs and symptoms. Signs are what's visible to people, or observable, I should say, measurable to people who are not the patient. So, a symptom is the patient is telling me that their stomach hurts. I can't see their stomach hurting. I'm not feeling their stomach hurting. They're telling me their stomach's hurting because I'm not feeling that pain, or the type of pain, or the frequency of pain, or the level of it. Whatever the case is, that is a difference. But when you're talking about signs and symptoms, but anyway, so you want to note the vital signs and injuries. Hey, what's your heart rate? What's your breathing rate? Are you staying calm? All that kind of stuff. And then note what's going on with that patient. Gather all personal effects and equipment, and give comfort and reassurance to the patient. It's going to be okay, because it's going to be, right? It hurts now, sucks now, later it won't. Energy is saved when warm and dry. So dress properly, eat properly, drink properly, shelter meets criteria, produce external heat, and more body heat is lost by being wet. So if you're staying warm and dry, then your body is going to preserve more of that energy. If you're able to produce external heat, say from a little stove or a fire or whatever, you don't want your body expending energy keeping your body warm. You want your body to be as relaxed as possible. So being in that environment is a stressful and taxing thing to do. It's a lot of fun. That's why we do it. A lot of times it's a test for us, right? But during that event, you're trying to minimize your maximum, if that makes any sense at all. You want to be as rested as possible while doing the most. So, are there any questions? So, if there are any questions, obviously go ahead and put them in the comments below. Hope you guys got something out of this. That's the down and dirty of this stuff. I could obviously go at length for every single bullet point. That's not what I want to do with you guys. If you guys are more interested in having a follow-up video on any one thing specifically, I would love to do that for you guys. Like, follow, share, comment, and if you're really interested in doing something like this, a little bit more hands-on, get in contact with us. We would love to put on a training class either here at the ranch, Legacy Ranch in Edgewood, New Mexico, and we have also explored the ability to do an MTT or mobile training team for you, your friends, your colleagues, your whatever it is. We're happy to put something together for you. So hopefully you got something out of it, and I will see you on the next one.